Hi, I'm Ally.
I'm Nick.
And this is the But Have You Tried bookshelf.
And it's the summer reading program, and it's balloon rally time.
Man, there's so much going on.
And it's so hot.
It's really hot.
It's a lot. People always walk in expecting it to be cooler in the library,
I feel
and
bad.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
And then they're like, man, it's so hot, it's so hot in here. And I'm like, man, I've been here for hours. Like, you ain't seen nothing
We've
yet.
acclimated. Here's some building trivia. The building was originally built with an air conditioning system.
Really?
Yes. But it was this was the 30s, and it was a cold water thing. And so it would pull water like from the river or whatever and circulate cold water all through the building to bring the temperature down. And it was such a draw on the water and the resources that it started to kind of choke the village a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
And they had to be like, you got to stop. And so they discontinued it. And so we've never
That's crazy.
since had one. Yeah.
The idea of just like grabbing river water and like running it through the library.
I know. I mean, it's pretty inventive. I got to give them that.
It's true.
It's pretty smart. Because the library property, used to butt right up to the river, before it was rerouted and everything. Like the property went right to it, so the flow of the river was a big part of cooling the library. And yeah,
that's fascinating.
Yeah, but here we are now, nearly 90 years later, no air conditioning.
No air conditioning.
In the middle of a heat wave. So we are recording during Shark Week. How's your Shark Week been? Have you Sharked Weeked at all?
Not more than the usual amount of shark.
Okay.
I have two sharks like on the dresser by my bedside with my like little stack of books.
Okay. Mm-hmm. How's your crayfish? Does she celebrate Shark Week, or is it? Is that insensitive?
I don't know if she really cares about Shark Week. I'm gonna be honest.
Okay.
She's doing well. We recently had to clean some of her hides, so we like took a couple this fake log thing and like a couple of pots out of the tank to like clean them because algae and stuff.
Sure.
Little girl. And she was like, "What have you done? Like, there's this big empty area in my tank now." And she was like walking around looking at it like, "What is this? What have you done?" But we put them back. It seems like she's forgiven us mostly.
Okay.
So
that's good.
That's good.
That's good. I watched Sharknado 4, The Fourth Awakens, with my friend Steve and Kendra. Every year we've watched a different one. And this was not fun. Sharknado is one of those things where it's like it's designed to be stupid and over the top, but by the fourth one, it's like, but the joke,
there's only so much,
get it, what I mean?
That you can do.
And there's two more. There's 6.
My gosh.
And we're committed, so
wow.
I got 2 more years of Sharknado viewing ahead of me.
You're a
and I'm not looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I feel I can trust you with that information. I'm not looking forward to it. Anyway, I hope everybody had a good Shark Week.
Yeah. Well, shall we talk some books, movies, TV shows? Other random life events.
Love to talk about all of those things. Where would you like me to begin?
Let's start with movies because that's always a category where I struggle, so we can get past it quickly.
Okay.
What have you been watching movie-wise?
Well, first of all, my son and I have been playing the Cars 3 video game, which we have here in the collection, and that sparked an interest in the Cars trilogy again. So my son's been really wanting to watch these. So we watched the Cars trilogy, which I hadn't seen in a long time, and I think it holds up. I think it's pretty solid.
Which one is your favorite?
3.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting choice.
One is fun. I think I've told you off mic that I have a weird fondness for these movies. I like their retro aesthetics. Like, there's a lot that I really appreciate about these movies. Yeah. So I like the first one a lot. The second one I didn't like as much on rewatch. That's the one that's like the spy.
Right.
And like you hardly get any Lightning McQueen. It's so much Mater.
I think that one actually is my favorite. It is weird that it's like 100% about Mater being a spy and not about Lightning McQueen at all.
Yeah.
But like as a kid, I was not anticipating that was what the movie was going to be when we watched it.
Yeah.
And I was like, spies?
Yeah.
This is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
No, it's a fun pivot. And like, Michael Caine is great in it. Like it's just a cool... Yeah, it's fun, but I was watching it. It just feels like it sort of disrupts the flow.
Yeah, it's definitely... It's more of a spin-off movie than a Cars movie, I would say.
Yeah, it feels like, back in the day when it was like a Disney sequel direct to VHS, it feels very much like the Return of Jafar of the Cars trilogy. But, I think the third one is cool. And the second one is smart because, like, how many movies can you do about a car race?
I mean, really, there's only so many.
I don't know. So... Yeah, I've been watching the Cars trilogy and
that
just being
fun.
absorbed. Yeah, we watched the Cars on the Road, like Disney Plus. It's like 8 or 9 episodes with the original cast and stuff. That was pretty fun. Quinta Brunson's in it as like a monster truck, and it's just a cool...
I feel like I might have seen those.
Yeah, I bet you'd like them. They came out maybe 2022, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
something tells me that I've seen them, but I don't know if that's true.
So Cars trilogy, and then my current things that I've been watching. I went to see A Quiet Place Day 1.
Oh.
Have you seen any of these movies? You don't like scary stuff.
Not really.
So, okay.
I'm intrigued by the concept of The Quiet Place, but...
I really, really liked the first one. And I sort of feel like the sequels take away a little bit from what was so cool about the first one. Because it's definitely a movie that, like, doesn't need a sequel. And I enjoyed the second one. And I even enjoyed Day 1. But it's like... The franchise has nothing new to say. Yeah. So it's just like, you like this vibe? Well, here's 2 more movies doing a similar thing.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like if you have a really interesting concept for what feels like it should be just a one-off movie, it can be really hard to go anywhere new with that afterward.
Yeah. It's also, I mean, I guess number 2 is a direct sequel, but it does show you the Day 1 stuff. Like, it shows the characters, like the Emily Blunt, John Krasinski characters from the first movie. It does show them experiencing, like, oh, this is happening. While the third one is largely new characters. But it just, I don't know. It's just sort of like a been there, done that. So, like,
yeah, that makes sense.
If you like the vibe and want to stick with it, then yeah. But
might as well.
Didn't do much for me. I watched Beverly Hills Cop Axel F., with Eddie Murphy and Judge Reinhold and Paul Reiser and like the old crew back. I'm assuming you've never watched any of the Beverly Hills Cop movies.
I've seen select clips that my dad thinks are the funniest clips in existence.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
First one's pretty solid. The second one is a little bit like A Quiet Place. It's like, we're doing it again. The third one's real bad. And this one, I felt like kind of nailed it. You know, it's a good legacy sequel because it's literally 40 years after the first movie came out. So that's a big, long stretch. But I think it does what you want it to do. It feels like a Beverly Hills Cop movie, but it does have some freshness to it. It has a good blend of introducing new characters and giving screen time to like the OGs. You know what I mean? So I liked it quite a bit. And I've heard that they've already talking about a Beverly Hills Cop 5, and I'm on board. So
fair enough.
Yeah. Yes, and I understand the that the criticism I just put at Quiet Place, I'm now negating by saying, just give me more of the same. But, I'm fickle. What are you going to do?
I mean, I feel like for some things, more of the same works more than others, you know?
Yeah. Well, it works better, I think, as a comedy piece, you know, than a
Yeah, I feel like comedies
thriller,
being repetitive is a little like more acceptable.
Yeah.
Just in general.
Yeah. Well, what's your movie list like? Usually it's tiny.
Yes, it is still tiny.
Okay.
Usually what happens is like the day before we record, I like text my husband and all my friends that I usually watch movies with, and I'm like, did we watch any movies this month? And I did watch a single movie this month.
Okay.
That I can remember.
All right.
Which is the new Mean Girls movie musical. Yes.
Okay.
And I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I had a good time.
Yeah.
I have never seen before watching this movie, like the musical version, like I've never seen a production of it or anything.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of interesting. And I was not sure going in whether it was a musical or not because I'd heard...
They really buried the lead on that. I think they were afraid to say, we're making a musical because...
Which I kind of understand, I guess.
But...
It is a little odd. It does feel like if you're afraid to make a musical, maybe people will be upset if you don't tell them that that's what you did.
Yeah, it's kind of a bait and switch, but...
Yeah, but
whatever.
I thought it was pretty good. I thought some of the ways that they like updated the overall vibe a little bit were kind of cool. I feel like the old one, every time I watch it, it feels more dated than I remember, I guess.
Okay.
So it's kind of fun to see them like playing around with some of that.
I remember my friend Bo and I went to see the original in theaters when it came out and liked it, and I don't think I've seen it since. And when the musical version was on tour, we all went to see it together up at Shea's. And the stage version I really liked seeing it on stage because it was really how they used the stage and how they integrated like technology and just the different elements of the scenery that you were seeing was just a really inventive way to tell that story. And I thought it was great. I liked the movie musical. I can't imagine a world in which I would watch it again.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I think it was
sometimes
solid.
once is enough.
Yeah, Well, you got one. That counts.
Yeah. I feel like because I feel like I've switched a little bit, because usually it's more that I struggle with TV shows.
Yeah.
But I have like a few movies.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've flip-flopped a little bit these last couple of months.
I'm struggling with TV shows. That's my thing now.
Well, let's talk about TV shows next.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just the busyness of the summer, but it's like...
We can blame it on that for sure.
When it's like I want to sit down and watch something, I just don't have any patience. Like I've been enjoying Star Wars: The Acolyte, but it's like...
Did you see the most recent episode?
No, I've only seen the first 3.
Oh, man.
And it's like every time I'm like, let's watch The Acolyte, my thumb just lingers over the play button and I can't do it. And then I end up watching like Seinfeld, or I've been watching that 90s show on Netflix.
I mean, I feel like you don't, like it's not, you don't want to make it into a chore to like watch TV.
No, I do want that. That's at least my behavior would imply that that's what I want. I'm trying to break it.
Trying to, unchorify our hobbies.
Yeah. So I would say the show that, realistically, the show that I've been watching the most, my wife and I are cruising through Seinfeld season 5, but that 90s show is the one where I'm like, all right, I got a few minutes, I'm going to throw this on.
Fair enough.
Another Legacy sequel, not great, but enjoyable.
Fair.
Yeah. What about you? What do you got?
Well, Caleb and I are up to date with Star Wars: The Acolyte.
Ah, okay.
And the most recent episode I'm a little about. Like, it wasn't bad, but it feels like it underperformed a little.
Yeah.
And I feel like they could still bring it home for the finale. So I'm withholding judgment for the time being.
I really like the characters and the actors and the performances, and I am intrigued enough by the story. It's not an indictment of The Acolyte that
Sometimes
I've been so slow to watch it.
You just can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My brain's too full.
Well, when you do catch up, there's a number of things that I'm curious to hear your thoughts on. So
all right, we can debrief.
Keep me posted.
We can debrief. Okay.
I also have finished all currently available Bridgerton.
Wow. Okay.
I have not watched the Queen Charlotte spinoff, and I probably will at some point. But I just don't really like Queen Charlotte as a character.
Gotcha.
She's kind of petty and rude and just causes problems. So I don't feel like very inspired to do it.
Sounds fun.
Right. And I've heard that it's good and like provides interesting like background.
Sure.
But I got my wisdom teeth out like 2 weeks ago now. And I basically just like came home and was like, all right, Bridgerton for the next 3 days. That's the only plan.
That's your thing. When I got my wisdom teeth out, I listened to a lot of the Wicked Broadway cast because it had just come out. And I would just lay there in bed and I listened to Wicked. And that's pretty much all I remember.
Fair enough.
So
yeah, I did also listen to a fair amount of audiobooks.
Oh, okay.
But it's like sometimes even that, it's like you need something that's even easier than an audiobook.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is pretty sad.
For sure. Anything else on your TV list?
My family is still very slowly making our way through Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Animated. The
original, which I've never seen before.
That's right.
Literal decades, I want to say, of people being like, you would like this show. Yeah. I'm enjoying it so far.
I saw a little bit, like just like the little sizzle when you're scrolling through Netflix of the live action. And I've always been like, why are you just remaking the cartoon again?
I know, that is a little odd.
But the little clip, I was kind of like, well, maybe I get it. That looked fun. It tempted me to watch it, but I didn't.
That's fair.
So.
Yeah, I'm kind of intrigued by the concept of making it live action. I feel like any time that happens, I'm always like, well, I want to see what you did, but also I'm skeptical of this whole idea.
Yeah.
So if we finish or just get farther, I might try an episode or so and see what I think.
That makes sense.
Okay, well, let's talk about some books. Maybe we can both have a good showing for books this month. I don't know.
All right.
I believe in us.
Well, sticking with the Rolling Stones, I did finally finish the Keith Richards biography, Life. And I enjoyed it, but it's sometimes you read a biography and it's like the people, whoever the subject is like, this is an autobiography. Sometimes the subject is like, all right, I know what people want to hear about, so let's really dig into it. This was not one of those. It felt very untethered to like the expectations you might have of reading like an autobiography of like the founding member of the Rolling Stones, because it really, like, it sounds silly to say that it doesn't talk about the Rolling Stones that much, but that is how I felt. Like in the end, like it didn't. Towards the end, we got a nice little chunk about their relationship, like Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, because that's always one of those ones that's kind of like they're frenemies, is what it feels like. But it really wasn't enough of it, and. They have so many albums, as we talked about.
Right. Like a zillion.
I feel like there wasn't really much time devoted to any particular album, which I think I would have enjoyed. So, I don't know. I'm glad I read it. I liked it. I took my time on it. But it's not like... It's certainly not a definitive, like, look at the Rolling Stones, which, it never claimed to be. But, yeah, it didn't fill in a lot of things that I wanted to know about. So, I guess I do have to just track down another, like, Rolling Stones book and read.
So, what... What did it talk about instead?
A lot of just personal life kind of stuff.
Okay.
Kids and family and misadventures and all that stuff.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, misadventures are always a good time.
Yeah. And actually, I was very invested into, the childhood years, before we even get to the Rolling Stones era. I could have used more of that, honestly, because it did feel a little bit like, okay, yep, oh, wow, drugs on an island, wow. It's the first time we're talking about that in at least 10 minutes. So, I think you just know what you're getting into, but it was fun.
Fair enough.
Yeah. What about you? What are you reading?
So I am currently reading a couple of things. I think we talked about Mistborn the last time we recorded.
Yes.
I'm still working on it. I'm really close to the end.
You still in book 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, which is 500 plus pages of small text.
It is the smallest text I've ever seen.
It is. Yeah, it's big pages, small text.
Yeah.
And I definitely was filled with a lot of fear when I picked it up, but I have been really enjoying it. I did listen to about half of it on audiobook because I just do better with audiobooks, and then I don't have to look at how many pages are left,
Yes, but I have trouble, particularly with something that's like fantasy or like a hard sci-fi. I have trouble getting into the world just listening to it. I feel like I need to read it and see it with my eyes, and
fair.
then I can switch to an audiobook once I kind of get the lingo.
I also feel like sometimes fantasy, the way that a fantasy world is introduced, the magic or the technology or whatever, can feel a little cringy sometimes because it's like those few opening pages are usually full of people doing stuff and name dropping the powers they have or whatever.
Yeah.
And that can just be really, it can be so much worse to deal with when you're listening to an audiobook somehow. But I feel like this was not too bad that way. There were a couple points where I was like, oh man, the way that you're explaining these powers is getting a little techie and I feel like I'm not going to like it. But it never got as now we're explaining the powers as I was afraid that it was going to.
Okay.
I'm close to the end. And I remember reading somewhere that the last 100 pages of any Brandon Sanderson novel are insane. And so far that proves to be true.
Okay.
So it's just
insane as in chock full of plot or just...
There's so much going on.
Okay.
It's climax after climax. And it's oh, they saved this character. Oh, but now they're fighting this. And this unexpected thing happened. And I'm I don't have time for this emotional upheaval right now.
Now, I know Mistborn is at least a trilogy, but I feel like there are also little spin-off books as
There's
well,
a trilogy that's set in one time period.
Gotcha.
And then there are... I think 3 or 4 more books
Yowzer.
that are set in a second time period that's 300 years later.
Okay.
It's basically a new series, but it's just kind of in the same world. And then I believe there's another planned trilogy set after that.
He's going Dune on this thing. Maybe it's too early to call, but do you see yourself picking up another book in the Mistborn series?
I probably will. I think unless things change in the second or third book, I think I probably want to at least read the first era trilogy.
Okay. Another nonfiction I read is called Race Matters. It's by Cornel West, and it was just a really insightful look at the politics of race and just the everyday impacts of racial issues. And I just thought it was just insightful and interesting, and I quite enjoyed it.
That does sound interesting.
Then I read one called Iron Widow, which is by Sharon J. Zhao. Have we talked about this?
We have talked about it a little bit, but I have not heard your thoughts about it.
Okay. I thought that it was the concept is men and women get paired together to fly these, it's a whole sort of fantasy kind of thing, but basically they sort of combined mentally to fly these things, and the women were often the collateral damage in this. It's it's really kind of using their mental power, and the men would continue on, and often the women would die, and it was just you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. And the setup of Iron Widow is basically the lead character, her older sister, was in one of these situations and died. She wants to get paired with the pilot who essentially killed her sister, and instead of flying the plane wants to kill this person.
Oh.
So that's the whole Iron Widow concept. And it stays pretty consistently interesting, but I think there's a bit of a pivot in that elevator pitch that I just gave you resolves very fast.
Okay.
So you think the whole book is going to be about that.
Right, that's what I would expect.
But that resolves very fast. And then the rest of the book is not even dealing with the aftermath so much as a new thing happens, and now that's what we're talking about. So I would have liked a lot more of the revenge plot. Mm-hmm. And I wish I could just turn the dials and change the proportions of story devoted to certain things, because I really feel like that initial concept is so intriguing, and there was so much more I think that could be done with it. But it's one of those ones where it's it lags a little bit, where you're okay, all right, we're here, blah, 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 blah. And then you sort of get to the resolution, And it is a bit of a cliffhanger of an ending. A second book is already coming out, I believe, in December of 2024. And I thought the cliffhanger of that kind of rehooked me. And I'm like, when is this book coming out? I want to know. So, yeah, I think it's worth a read. It's a quick read. So, yeah, I think it's worth it. Yeah. So those are the ones that I finished. I'm currently reading The Grey Ghost by Clive Cussler and Robin Bursell because that's our book club pick. And we're going to be meeting over at the Wellsville Brewing Company July 25th at 3 o'clock to talk about this Clive Cussler, Robin Bursell, Treasure Hunter, Grey Ghost.
Sounds fun.
Book. Yeah, I've only read one Clive Cussler before. And this is probably on par with the other one that I read. It's never going to be top tier for me, but like I get the appeal.
Fair enough.
You know?
Plus, it's an excuse to experience the ambiance of the brewery.
Yeah.
I am like really, really not a beer person.
Yeah.
But every time I've gone in there, I'm like, this is just a cool place.
It is. Yeah, it's very pleasant.
It is extremely pleasant. Yeah, it's like the lighting and the like decorations and everything. Yeah. It's just nice.
Yeah, every time I go in there now, they're just like birch beer, right? And I'm like, yeah, keep it coming.
You feel
seen. They just know. Yeah, they just know.
Nice.
Yeah. So, Mistborn, that's your current reading?
Also am currently reading a book called Paladin's Grace by T. Kingfisher for my book club.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
And once we finished reading A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, we were like, let's pick another book. And we had like 2 requirements. I think we said we wanted something relatively lighthearted and fun because A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is like, murder and that kind of stuff. And we were like, maybe something a little dialed back. Mm-hmm. And we also said we do not want a book with spice. So we picked this book. We started reading it.
Spice.
And one of my friends texted me the other day and she was like, so my mom told me that she read the whole book and it has a lot of spice. In the second half, we just finished like the first half.
Okay.
And so now it's like, well, I guess like whoever of us is feeling brave will like go forward and then text everyone else which chapters to skip and that kind of thing.
To skip?
To skip.
Wow, you're not even
to skip the spice.
All right.
Well, I mean, yeah, the goal was no spice and we failed. We failed with our goal.
Yeah.
But I have been really enjoying the book so far.
Okay.
One of the characters is like a perfumer, and so she's like always talking about like all the like scents around her and everything. And I feel like that could be obnoxious in a book, but it's actually very intriguing. And also now my entire book club either wants to make perfume or wants to like buy a bunch of perfume. So,
Yes. It's going to be kind of interesting for you to get to the end of this book because one thing that I found in doing the library book club so many times is, we'll sit down to discuss and somebody will be like, I just couldn't handle the language in this book. And I'm like racking my brain to think about, like, were they swearing a lot? Like, I don't even remember. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
So
sometimes once you get to the,
matters,
perspective,
you know what I mean? So,
yes. I'm curious to see what it'll be like.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a couple ways that it could play out. Yeah. Also, sometimes when you get to the end of the book, I feel like you just forget certain parts of it, or like when you get to the end of a movie and you forget, and then you recommend it to someone else, and they're like, "Why didn't you tell me about that?"
Yes, we've
whole
all
scene?
been down that road.
It's like, oh, because I forgot about that.
Yep, that is
100%. That's most of what I'm currently reading. I did just start one called The Other Einstein by Marie Benedict, which is about Einstein's wife, who apparently was also a physicist.
Yes, I know my wife read that book. I read The Only Woman in the Room by, I think that's the same author.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
I keep
Marie
reshelving.
Benedict, yes.
There's a lot of ones that I feel like are similar about like historical women.
Yes.
And I keep reshelving them and being like, this looks kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And I had finished an audiobook and I needed a new one, so that's what I found.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Comic books?
I am reading America Chavez Made in the USA.
Oh, okay. I've read some. I don't know if I've read that particular volume, but
I feel like the titles are often a little similar, and so they start to like blur together.
I want to say that's the more recent one. The first America Chavez series, I found to be a little sloppy. Like I felt like it lacked a through line.
Is that the Life and Times of America Chavez?
Maybe, yeah.
It's like there's the one where she's like on the cover and she's like reaching one arm up.
Yeah.
And then there's the one where it's like her face really big.
Yes, I read that series.
The face really big one?
Yes.
Okay, is that the one you thought was sloppy?
Yes.
Okay. That's the Life and Times of America Chavez.
Gotcha. Okay, all right. I like the character, but I just didn't really.
That's fair.
For me.
I didn't really notice, but I also am not really good at picking up on like overarching plot problems.
I see.
I'm just like, I'm having a good time.
You're just absorbing it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I can't help it.
Caleb and I will watch a movie and we'll get to the end and he'll be like, I thought this part and this part were like missing from the plot, or these things were a little underbaked, and I'm like, it just totally sailed right over my head. I didn't even give it a thought.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like that's sort of the ideal setting for that, just to be able to kind of just enjoy the ride,
Well, and sometimes we'll talk about movies and he'll be like, here are things I think they could have done better. And I'm like, well, yeah, maybe they could have. But I feel like my approach is always just like, here are the things that like stood out to me that I liked. You know what I mean? And so I feel like for a long time when we talk about it, I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah.
For a long time, we'd like be talking about a movie or something, and it's like it would almost start to be an argument, and I'd be like, "Why are you criticizing this movie? Why don't you like it?" And he's like, "I'm not. I thought these few things could have been different." And I'm like, "But we're focusing on what we like. Yeah. That's what we do."
That's true.
So
you're an inspiration to us all.
It was an interesting learning experience for us both.
Yeah.
Okay, so what else have you been up to in your general life? Music, comics.
Jeez.
Anything. Dying of heat.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the dying of heat part has happened. Our friends just had twins, so we went up to see the twins. So I had, a baby on each arm, and yeah, we had a good time with that. And I've been listening to a lot of the band Foreigner. I've been on sort of an 80s kick, and that's fun. Pretty much just that.
Fair
just
enough.
Chilling out, listening to music, being too hot. What about you? How are your teeth holes?
My teeth holes are okay.
Okay.
I did have to go back to the oral surgeon because I was like, it seems like there might be a problem. And they were both basically just like, oh, yeah, some food's getting stuck back there. We'll give you a syringe to clean it.
Yeah.
And I talked to several other people.
Like hook syringe.
Yeah. And they were like, why didn't they just give you one of those, like...
I guess I thought that was standard.
To start.
I thought that's what you're supposed to do.
Right? I don't know. I know that, like, practices change and also different doctors will, like, do different things. So now I have that. And it's just,
okay,
gradually eating more and more crunchy food.
I can tell you I got dry socket one time, and I don't recommend it.
Yeah, I've heard it's a bad time.
Yeah.
I've heard it's a bad time.
Can confirm. Yep.
One of my friends also had a baby.
Okay.
A singular baby, not twins.
Just one. Yeah.
Just one.
Lame.
They did have the same due date, actually.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. I've gotten to meet the new baby, and I also bought a tin whistle as my reward to myself for surviving getting my wisdom teeth out.
Okay.
So I've been...
And?
I'm enjoying it so far. I'm still pretty bad. It doesn't seem like it should be hard to just, like, play a note.
Yeah.
But it kind of is.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at right now.
I feel like you and my wife were somehow, like, separated at birth or something because Hillary plays a tin whistle. It's great. I love when she plays it, so...
Yeah, I remember she played it for whatever the last festival we had was, the kickoff
whatever
summer
it was,
event.
Kickoff to summer. Yeah.
I was excited. That was very cool.
Yeah, she's great at it. It's cool. So you'll have to keep us apprised of how this goes.
I will.
Yeah. I should mention that I've also been watching a little show called Leverage, which is, of course, my assignment for this month. I watched Leverage, which stars Timothy Hutton, and I also watched this movie called Taps, which is Timothy Hutton's, like, I don't know if it's his first movie, but it's a very early movie. It's like him. It's Sean Penn's first movie, and it's Tom Cruise's first, like, he had a bit part, like, prior to this. Really interesting and depressing story about a military school that's being shut down. And there's, like, this event happens, and the students decide they're going to, like, hunker down and, like, take over the school and force it to stay open.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
It goes to some sad and thought-provoking places just about the military and about like honor and about what's really important and all of that. I'd never seen it before, and it was interesting, and I didn't intend to watch like Timothy Hutton on both ends of his career, but it was sort of cool to see it in two different
that's always
zones.
a fun
so
comparison.
So I'm watching Leverage, and I will tell you about it in 2 weeks, but not a moment sooner.
Yeah, I have no idea. You're using a poker face, so I have no idea what you're thinking.
Yeah, acting. So.
All right, listeners, join us again in 2 weeks to talk about Leverage.
Yes, which we do have on DVD here. You can check it out.
Yes. So if you want to watch along with us, you can.
Yeah.
And until then, so long and stay cool.
Okay. Bye, everybody.